What's up, everyone? Welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are going over all of your macaron questions in a comprehensive macaron troubleshooting video. You guys have been so patient with me as I put this video together. Thank you for sending in those troubleshooting questions in the first place when we took a poll on Instagram. That really helped shape this video and helps you get the information you need specifically. So it's an awesome relationship being able to interact back and forth in those polls, either on YouTube or Instagram. So thank you so much for your engagement. My goal here is to make this video as comprehensive and concise as possible so we can get down the concepts of macaron making and figure out what the heck is going wrong with all of our fails. And it's not at all to discourage us. It is only to encourage us to celebrate no matter if we fail or if we succeed on our Mac bakes, to just learn from it all, celebrate our progress, and to enjoy the process. So let's jump into it. So I'm gonna start with cracked shells. If you are putting your macarons in, you think your batter looks the tits, and then it's cracked after you bake it. It could be a couple of things going wrong here. You could have had your oven too high. You could have over-mixed your batter, which kills the strength of your batter and doesn't allow for the top to develop a nice skin, and it's gonna crack easily when you put it in the oven. You could have undermixed your batter as well, so then you have too much air left in that batter and they explode or crack once you put them in the oven. You could also have bad airflow. If you have a conventional oven like I do, the airflow is not very good. We don't have the fan like someone who has a convection. So what I do is to help the airflow in my oven, I flip my trays upside down. I pipe on that so I don't have a lip that's going to cut off circulation on those corner Macs. Venting your oven, so if you have a wooden spoon, you can stick that in for the first 3 minutes or so to let that initial moisture rise and leave your oven after you put your Macs in. That will help prevent cracking. Venting the oven is really nice. I don't start with my oven vented, but if after 2 minutes, I just open my oven a tiny bit to release the air, to release that moisture, and then I close it back up. Not resting long enough is also going to cause cracked macaron shells. You don't have a nice layer of like a skin on your Mac, and it's going to have weak spots all over and it's going to burst. Humid environments or too much moisture will also have result in cracked macarons. So if you live in a rainy area like the Pacific Northwest, you can close all your windows, buy a dehumidifier, run that for a few hours before you bake. Don't do your laundry, don't do the dishes, don't add moisture to your environment unless you have a huge home and you know it won't affect your kitchen. But my home is tiny and I don't run any water while I'm resting my macarons. I don't want anything messing up my Macs. No moisture, thank you. Lower your moisture in the air. You can also turn on your air conditioner and blast that baby and dry out your air in your environment. So that is cracked shells. Let's move on to the next question you guys sent in. Why do I have lopsided macarons or uneven feet? So a few things for that. The obvious one is your batter is not thoroughly mixed. When you're doing your macaronage process, it's best to be very methodical about it. And you're gonna want to make sure you get all the way at the bottom of your bowl and mix everything in evenly. And that will help if that's your issue. Another issue could be piping at an angle that's gonna cause your shells to rise in a weird way. Try to pipe at 90-degree angle, straight up and down onto your mat or non-stick surface. Bad airflow, again, can cause lopsided macarons, and this is combated by flipping your tray over, piping on the back side. Make sure you have a clean silk pad. If you're getting uneven macs, it could be because you have oil residue left on your silicone mat, Teflon mat. It will facilitate rising straight up with a nice clean mat. You could have overworked your piping bag in your batter. So maybe that bottom of your batter is perfect, and then after piping all your other macs, the top gets all wonky, and then you're gonna have uneven at the end. Try to work quickly, especially, I'm doing French macarons here. So try to work quickly with your batter. It is not as sturdy as an Italian meringue-based macaron would be. So working quicker will help your uneven feet, and don't let your batter sit for too long. Same thing. Oven temp could also be too high. It's going to like rise up too fast, and then maybe one side will plop down and the other will stay up. It just is better to do low temp for a longer time with macarons. I like 300 Fahrenheit, and then I drop my oven down to 275 for 22 minutes. Soft, fragile tops. Whew. I'm gonna read through these ones. This is what I put. So if you got wonky tops, you could have overmixed your meringue. If you've ever gotten your meringue to almost look separated and dry, that is an over-mixed meringue. It's really hard to overmix when you do it with my method, with the egg white powder. So I would suggest using egg white powder if you don't already, if you're having trouble with your meringue. And also with your meringue, go slow. Slowly mix your egg whites, put in your sugar, and then slowly bring it up in speed on your mixer or your hand mixer, because the faster you do it, the more unstable your meringue is gonna be. You want a stable meringue. So that is key for your, I feel like it's directly proportional, your meringue strength to your shell strength. So make sure that meringue looks perfect, and then hopefully that will aid in wonderful shells. Okay, you could have overmixed your batter, which kills stability of your batter as well. Too much liquid in your batter also can cause those soft tops, so adding too much food gel or colorant could do that. Or if your bowls weren't wiped clean, just make sure everything is dry. All the excess drops of water will cause wonky macs. So you want to make sure you have a dry environment. That includes your tools, your hands, and your ingredients going in. Your almond flour, it could be oily, it could be a little moist. I store my almond flour in the fridge, and if it's not in an airtight container, it may get moist and absorb some of the moisture from your refrigerator. If you do this, airtight container, if it still seems moist after in the refrigerator, even after it's at room temp, pop it in your oven, 300 degrees for about 10 minutes. You don't want browning, so if your oven cooks faster, maybe do 5 to 7 minutes. No browning, just drying out your almond flour. For those soft, fragile tops, it could also be too low of an oven temperature. I would not recommend going lower than 275 on those macarons. It will cause issues. So now we are going for hollow shells, which is the issues I was talking about. When you do a low oven temp, you are going to have to combat hollow shells. When you bake at a higher temperature, your shells are going to be fuller. However, then you have to deal with browning. So you want to be able to find that beautiful spot for your oven that's going to give you non-hollows but also not brown your Macs. Other things that cause hollow shells. This was a big one, so let's go over this. So I think I said this in one of my first videos. The most important things, those critical moments when you're making Macs, are the meringue and the macaronage and the bake. These are the times that things can go wrong for your shells. You want that meringue to be super sturdy. You don't want it over whipped, you don't want it under whipped. You want a nice stiff peak. When you lift the beater up from the bowl, you want from below, you want it to be sticking straight up, not bad. And you want your beater to also have, or your whisk to also have a nice point on it. The macaronage process, when you are mixing up your batter and deflating it to exactly the right consistency, you do not want to have too much air left, because that's gonna cause air in your shells, hollow shells. But you also don't want to overmix, which is going to cause your batter to be too runny and wet. As long as it is flowing off your spatula in a ribbon stage, but with a good stability still, you want it to be, thick. And then I said the bake is really important too, because the low temp of your oven will cause hollow shells. Also, silicone mats will aid in having a nice gap because of the conduction of silicone. It's not a good conductor of heat, so it's not going to help you rise up as well as, say, a Teflon. I prefer silicone mats. I'm fine with a tiny gap because I can fill my Mac shells and sandwich them together and you can't even tell. So don't get stuck on that. If your problem is just a tiny gap, it's probably just your method of baking. Try a parchment if it really bothers you. Try parchment. Other things that can cause hollow shells. Not wrapping your tray after you pipe it. Make sure you, I tap the bottom of my tray, or you can pound it on your tabletop, whatever you do. Try to get those excess air bubbles out. So someone specifically asked, I'm baking at higher temps to combat those hollow shells, but now I'm burning. My Macs are burning and they're brown. What do I do? So I would suggest starting your oven high, like high meaning 315, 320 at the most. My oven can't do 320, my Macs will crack. Depending on your oven, try 315, 320 for the first half of your bake, and then lower your oven down to 275, 300 for the remainder, and see if that helps with your browning shells. And one last culprit that could be causing those hollow shells is resting your Macs too long. So I recommend putting those macarons in as soon as you get a nice skin development on there. All right, let's go to when your feet burst outwards instead of rising up. What the heck's going on? Usually your oven temp is too high, or you have too much liquid in your batter and it's just bursting out. The moisture is bursting your Macs outwards. So I would say definitely lower the amount of coloring you put in, the gel paste, or if you're adding extracts or anything like that, to reduce that amount. Splotchy Macarons. Have you ever had Splotchy Macs? I have when I add certain ingredients to it, but some people might have a splotchy macaron because of almond flour. The almond flour could get oily. If you pulse your almond flour in a food processor, I would say do it carefully. Do it only a few times, because you can leach out the oils when you pulse too much. I'd also recommend pulsing with your confectioner's sugar, so it gives it like a coating. It's less likely to leach out the oils and make almond butter when you have the confectioner's sugar in there. Other questions, I got a lot of questions about sticky bottoms. This is because your macarons are not baked fully. But I would recommend just baking longer and lower if you want to stick with silicone mats. Also, let them cool completely. This is funny because I never let mine cool either. I am so anxious to lift up my macarons after I take them out of the oven, but if you have sticky bottoms, it could just be as easy as letting them cool and then they will come off of your baking mat easier. Macs deflating. If your macs are deflating after you bake them, this is another issue of not baking long enough. Keep baking. If they're browning, lower your oven temperature. Air pockets, not smooth. I also went over this in the hollows. You should just, if they really bother you, air pockets, and you're not having a smooth top, take the time to pop with a scribe, with a toothpick, pop your air bubbles on the surface of your macaron shells after piping before drying, or else they're not gonna look nice. Right after you pipe them, and then pound them, wrap your tray, help them along with that scribe, and pop those bubbles. Also, if you have a not smooth macaron shell or top, it could be a question of, have you sifted your ingredients? Make sure you sift your ingredients at least once. It really does aid in a nice, shiny, smooth shell. No feet, tiny feet. I hate when my Macs have no feet or like just the tiniest little foot. It's usually when the weather is super moist outside and I cannot combat that. I cannot make it dry enough in my environment. But other things that aid into having no feet or little feet is over mixing your batter, not resting long enough. Under mixing your meringue can also cause this because you are going to, not having that sturdy meringue is going to not allow for your shell to rise up as much and develop those nice feet. And the last one is too low of an oven temperature can cause those tiny, tiny feet. You can raise the oven temp up 5 degrees or so and see if that improves your Macs. On the other side of it, you guys have asked about too big of feet. When they just go way up, your Mac goes way up. Usually it's hollow inside after that, and that is usually because you're resting either too long. Try to rest only as long as they need to develop a skin and then put them in your oven. If you have multiple trays and you want to get those baked as quickly as possible, try doing the method where you alternate those trays in and out. It saves a lot of time. Another thing, if you're not resting your Mac shells that long and you're still getting huge feet, it might be that your oven temp is too high. So you can try lowering your temperature down 5 degrees at a time and see how that helps. Moving on to browning shells or fading of color. Ways to combat this is to use great products. We've got Americolor, Chef Rubber, and the Sugar Art. And then there is Chef Master. It's really good and solid. Those are my 4 favorites. So using a good colorant will help those colors stay vibrant. It's really worth spending that extra money. Keeping your oven lower will also help you as well to keep your Mac color vibrant. Moving on, I had one person actually say they had trouble with their macarons maturing, that after filling they stayed hard and crunchy. I would say that is an issue of being over baked, and I would bake less if that is your problem, if your Macs are too crunchy. Someone said that when you pipe your shells, they look gorgeous after baking, but then they're not flush on the bottom with your mat once you flip them over. It's happened to me a few times. That is from poor conduction of heat. Your air is not circulating well in your oven. I usually get this result when I try out air bake trays with silicone mats. The air bake tray is insulated. The silicone mat is not a good conductor of heat, and it doesn't aid in baking your shells all the way through. The last one is uneven shells. How in the world do we get beautiful shells to pair up that are the same size every time? I suggest using a template for pairing up your macaron shells, and I also recommend methodical macaronage, because the more you mix your batter, the more it's gonna spread. So as long as you get a consistent batter consistency every time, you're gonna have the same shapes. You're gonna know how your batter is gonna behave once you pipe it out. Some people count how many strokes they do so they remember for every single batch. I'm not that inclined to do that, but whatever helps you. If you're a counter, do it every time, and then you'll get used to how your batter spreads, and you'll be able to predict exactly how much it's going to spread out. And that concludes our macaron troubleshooting video. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me, for sticking with this space for however long this video may be. We appreciate you guys, and I wanted to direct you to that community tab on our channel. That will be a great source for more polls, for figuring out what you guys want to see in the year 2020. We're super excited to start the year off with a boom. Some big things coming down on our channel. Pastry videos coming at you. Please make sure to cast your vote in what we want our next video to be. It's happening right now, community tab. Much love to you all. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and of course, we'll love you forever. All right, thank you guys. If I didn't answer your questions, please comment down below. Let's have a conversation and get things squared away. I hope that this video motivates you guys